Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I am joined by Shane, Shannon, Kat, and Heather today, who you have no doubt met in many of our other mini-series episodes so far. I think this is symptom 4 of 9 that we're working on today. As you can probably tell, I have a cold, and Heather, if you're watching the video episode, is MIA on video because she's getting ready for a glow party, which sounds like a lot more fun than talking about impulsivity. Heather showed up to the recording and said, I feel like an impulsivity tornado, so this is really good timing. We all feel that. We're kind of in our impulsivity moment today, but really excited to record this episode. As you gathered, we're going to be talking about the BPD symptom of impulsivity. So just reading what it says in the DSM so that we all have the same information. One of the criteria is impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially damaging as one of the 9 borderline personality disorder criteria. This can include a lot of different things, but I'll kind of just list like the most common ones, which are reckless driving, unsafe, reckless sex, so sex with lots of partners without thinking about the consequences, binge eating, substance use, spending can be a big one as well. And then one thing to keep in mind is, generally speaking, self-harm is not considered an impulsivity criteria in the DSM because it's like when you're diagnosing something, because it's its own criteria of BPD. Self-harm is often impulsive, but for the sake of this conversation, and we're going to leave out self-harm as an impulsivity trait, unless it just kind of comes up naturally, because that's its own symptom that we're going to talk about another time. So we don't need to kind of like rehash the same things twice. So I think with that, I'm just trying to think if there's any announcements that I need to make. Just so you know, this episode's coming out in July, and I always take August off. So you'll notice that there's no podcast in your feed for August. Great time to catch up. There's also a bajillion bonus episodes on Patreon that you can listen to, full-length episodes, video, non-video. Yeah, feel free to interact on Instagram. There's always clips and stuff on there too. So August is just my own self-care time that I take, and it's very important to me. So trying to model that. And I'll be back in September with all of these fine folks. So with that, let's talk about impulsivity. I think I want to start by just saying like impulsivity is both fun and really damaging. And I think this will naturally come up throughout the conversation, but I always want to acknowledge like none of these symptoms are all negative. And I think impulsivity often has like so much fun to it that in some ways it's like almost the easiest one to see the positive in that symptom. So with that, is there anyone that wants to kind of start with what impulsivity looks like for them?
Yeah, I can go. I do feel like I have a lot to say on this topic. I'm just trying to wrap like my brain around all of it. Lori, as you were going through your brief list of like what it looks like, whether it's impulsive spending, reckless driving, check. I mean, substance use, check. Sex, check. Binge eating, check. And I was telling Kat before we kind of hopped on the conversation, I also have ADHD, and that comes with its own issues with impulsivity. So I feel like I got the double whammy there when it comes to co-diagnoses. I will say I think that like my impulsive behaviors have like looked a lot different like throughout my life. When I was younger, especially like when I started to drive, that's kind of like the first impulsive memories that come up. Reckless driving was definitely huge. And I noticed that it also coincided with my suicidality, my suicidal
Like when you were
thoughts
suicidal,
a
you
lot.
would be more likely to reckless drive?
Yes. Yeah, for
Makes
sure.
sense.
Yeah, like it was a coping skill of mine to just like take my car out at like 2 a.m. and just drive as fast as I can down a highway. Like that's how I was getting through a lot of the big feelings that I experienced in high school, and then I think in college it turned into a lot of substance use, and I think I acted really impulsively out of FOMO. Y'all familiar with FOMO? Yeah,
Yeah.
so fear of missing
Fear of
out.
missing out.
And I want to say on that note though, like without my impulsivity, like without my impulsive behaviors and like decisions that I've made throughout my life wouldn't be as fun. I wouldn't have experienced so many things, like I wouldn't have gone on an exchange trip to Germany. I just did that on a whim. Countless parties that I've been to where I've had these just kind of crazy experiences. Definitely reckless. Like I don't want to glorify the partying and things, right? I definitely put myself in a lot of dangerous situations, but damn, did I have a lot of fun doing it.
Totally. And I think that sometimes like I know some people that the Germany example is a good one. And there's so many people that just up and leave and just like go live another life in another country on a whim. And I'm like, that's so cool. I would literally never do that. And so I do think that there's some impulsivity in that sense where it's like you get to live this like super cool life that's not necessarily what's tied to American values of like what you should do, right? Like you should go to college, then you should get a job, and then you should have kids, and then you should whatever. So I do think that's really cool. In terms of the substance use, and you don't need to go into details if you don't want to, but there's also, I think, a big component of like if we're drinking or like doing stimulants or any of that stuff, then that also increases the impulsivity. And so it just is this like kind of cycle that just continues to go, and then it leads to impulsive sex, and then it leads to binge eating, and it leads to drunk driving or whatever it is. And so I think it's so connected in that way.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. And actually, I was kind of almost thinking about it before we started. When it comes to, I guess, like the addiction piece about it, I feel like my impulsivity at times has become a compulsion. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Do you want to elaborate a bit?
I guess what I'm trying to explain is, I mean, really I mean, I don't want to say the definition of addiction, but like, I tried these things on an impulse, wanting to be cool or not wanting to miss out, right? I know that addiction runs in my family, so there's a lot of layers to it here. But at times, like through my use, I've done a lot of different things. I mean, I've done, in high school, I was doing like pills, a lot of downers. In college, it was a lot of drinking, a lot of uppers. So I've kind of had a wide variety of drug use, and so much so that like it got to a point where I just felt like I needed it. Which again, so that's why I'm saying it kind of just is what addiction is.
Right.
But I wonder if like the impulsivity turning into compulsivity has been a theme for somebody else, like around whether, I don't know, reckless driving or spending or the binge eating, the sex.
Yeah, it's a good question. Anybody relate to that?
I want to jump in with impulsivity when you are a super feeler and these moments of reckless abandon, what you were saying before about how they often feel good and there's so much fun involved and you have really great experiences when you make off the cuff decisions and spontaneity and all of those things. I think it's important to acknowledge that we don't live the large proportion of our life generally feeling these things. So for me, and I won't speak on behalf of you guys, but I feel like there'll be aspects that you agree with. When you're on that roller coaster of, the really deep, deep downs, when you do become impulsive and it is around that fun, there's happiness, there's excitement, there's joy, that in itself is addictive for us when you live such a large proportion of your life dealing with depression and anxiety and extreme mood swings and super big emotions. And a lot of the time, the impulsive stuff doesn't come with bad consequences. But there are times where impulsivity, like Shane said, can turn into compulsive behaviors. And I think often that's because we're chasing that feeling. Like when you feel crap for a lot of the time, when you do have those moments of dopamine rushes and just sheer joy or excitement,
Or like
it's
connection?
Sorry?
I was just going to say connection because I think about like impulsive sex as like a very good example
Yes,
of just like somebody's paying attention to me.
that's right. When you feel unlovable. And so I think it's worth really looking at the contrast between where we exist regularly and then these moments of bliss where we feel all of the great emotions with the same intensity that we feel the negative ones. So I think it's quite natural that people with BPD would chase that. And so that danger then for it to become compulsive is actually quite real for us, probably in comparison to, say, somebody who is not a super feeler. And I think a lot of the places where it becomes problematic and why impulsivity sort of gets looped in as a major symptom is that because we are chasing that, we often put ourselves in dangerous situations, and it becomes, rather than just a symptom, a maladaptive coping mechanism. Because when you're trying to feel better, you will repeat the behaviors that make you feel better. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about this, but I can, for myself, those times, definitely in my teen years, different sexual partners, it was never about the sex. It was always about the connection or feeling accepted or like it was what I was supposed to do. And even in adulthood, that feeling of attention, I haven't carried those same behaviors through into my adult life, but that feeling of, someone finding you attractive or giving you attention, they can be addictive behaviors, which can then have terrible consequences. The same with drinking, the same with, before we went on air, I was just talking about, let's just pack up and move to Tasmania. And Scott comes in with his sensible, well, how would we have an income and how would we, survive and how would we feed our child? And I'm like, look, your responsibility is really killing my vibe, because it's
we just figure all of the important stuff out later.
That's right. I just assume that people who aren't super feelers probably work that out first, but not me. But there is so much positivity to it as well. Like what you were saying, I can be the funnest person in the room at times, and it doesn't matter what someone suggests, I'm willing to give it a go. And those are great attributes and things that my friends would say that they really like about me. And so trying to find that line between the two, where this is a healthy behavior and where it moves across to maybe being something that could be harmful. It's a hard line to walk, especially when you feel crap a lot of the time and you are chasing those moments of bliss that feel, so different to how you normally exist.
And I think there's a component of harm reduction that comes into that, right? Like, I think about I think the one for me, binge drinking and reckless driving binge eating and reckless driving are definitely things that I resonate with. But I think, and excessive spending, to be fair. But I think for me, like, I look back at my sexual history and I go, holy shit, how do I not have an STD? How have I not had to have an abortion? I don't know how that's even possible. And I was talking to another friend of mine the other day, and she was saying about her kind of like slut phase. What did she call it? She had a great name for it, like a hocation or something. Anyways.
We call it whore era.
Whore era. There you go. All of these things. I love all of it. And it was a blast. Don't get me wrong. But she was like, not even like getting pregnant or getting an STD or STI. She was like, I could have died. And I was like, yeah, honestly, like if you think about the impulsivity that comes with like going to a strange man's house and he's giving you drinks and you're hammered and you have no way to get home and you don't know who this person's name is, like it's actually kind of horrifying if you actually think about it too hard. But at the time I was like, oh, somebody wants to sleep with me, perfect. And I would just get in a cab and go to some random person's house. So to me, I think like that retroactively is the most damaging for me, or could have been the most damaging for me in like so many ways. But thankfully it just kind of, I lucked out, I think. But like, had I not lucked out, things could have gotten real bad real fast. So it's kind of a weird one to think about.
Yeah, I found it really interesting that you all use this term like looking for connection when it comes to sex, because like for me that's not necessarily the case. Like my impulsive, like I guess sex behavior is more of a self-harm thing.
Yep.
It's more of a self-harm thing.
Degradation? What the hell is that word?
Degradation?
Yeah, like I'm not worth anything, so like use me. I think that was a big part of what was part of my thing too.
Yeah, which is something that I'm kind of just like sitting with in therapy, and honestly like is really uncomfortable for me to sit with because I don't think I'm ready to unpack it yet, quite honestly. But I'd be interested to see like to take more time to kind of go through this list and really pick it apart. What was me like chasing that high, and what was me like really just like wanting to self-harm in this case,
Interesting. And then self-harm not being the traditional like I'm not going to go through the examples, but we all know what they are of like the things that you think of when you self-harm. But like these are all components of self-harm. They just don't necessarily look like what other people might think they are.
Right. Yeah.
Kat, do you have anything you want to share on this kind of side of things? We're kind of going in like weird ways here.
Okay, first an apology. I am now in a thunderstorm, so it might rain in a minute.
No worries. Fun.
Yeah, no, just to park the self-harm and suicidality, because that 100% is impulsive and compulsive at times. But yeah, binge eating, alcohol, driving, yeah, and like walking alone at night, which, yeah, there were times when I chose to go to certain places that weren't great.
Yeah, like you knew were potentially dangerous and you just did it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like that line where like impulsive becomes compulsive. So like getting really drunk because I was around other people and getting really drunk helped. Like I was once out with a new friend, and we were about half an hour in, and she just looked at me and she went like, "People that are okay don't drink the way you're drinking." And I was like, oh, okay. But then, yeah, just doing that to fit in, but then becoming like, oh, well, if I drink 10 beers every night, then I can sleep without flashbacks and stuff. And then that builds on itself. And then, like you say, it becomes like a coping mechanism. Yeah. And then like irresponsible spending, like I blame the littles for that. It's usually Teddy's. Yeah, just all of it. Yeah, it's a weird one. And then I guess impulsive stuff, like I lived in a house for a year that we didn't see before we moved down. They were just like, it's nice, it's big enough. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go there then.
Yeah, that's impulsive for sure. People do it, but it's impulsive for sure.
It turned out really well. It was lovely. You could like run down to the river. It was great. I think what else I've done. Yeah, I guess just going places. Like I went up round up towards like Glencoe and up there last year at one point, just because I felt like it, and that was just on like a day's notice. It was just like, okay, so if I don't go now, I won't be able to go another time, so off I'll go.
And that's the kind of stuff that's really cool, right?
Yeah,
because if you didn't have that, you would be like over planning. You'd be like, well, I don't know, is it feasible? Is this irresponsible?
Yeah,
blah blah blah. And instead, you're like, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Can I share a fun impulsive story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Kat, for some reason, this just kind of what you said reminded me of this. There was 2 years ago for my birthday, I bought myself for my birthday present tickets to go see Sum 41, The Offspring, Blink 182. Yeah, like really hit bands, right? But here's a catch. So I was living in Oregon at the time. I bought the tickets when I was visiting home in Virginia, went back to Oregon. The concert was over the summer. It was all the way in California. So I drove 17 hours straight to go to this concert.
That's amazing.
On an impulse, tried ketamine for the first time. So that was wild. And then once the concert was over, slept in my car, drove over the Golden Gate Bridge over it, like across, like at nighttime. Like it was a crazy experience.
That's
but
amazing.
Did this all on a whim.
Right? And if you had thought that through, you would never have done it.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. I didn't have enough money or enough gas to get back to Oregon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
So, yeah, that's like the highlight of my impulsive thinking and spending. So great time though. It's a great time.
Yeah, no, totally. I recently bought tickets for Rory in Liverpool. So I used to live in Liverpool. But my friend that I want to come with me will not sleep in the car. So I don't know where we're going to stay, but I don't really care. It's in November. It's going to be amazing.
You're like, I'll sleep in the car, so you figure it out.
Totally. She can go where she wants. We'll probably end up going to a spa, which would be lovely. But yeah, I actually have 2 of Rory's t-shirts because I impulsively bought them twice, the same one. They arrived and I was like, apparently I already ordered that.
Honestly, like online shopping is so dangerous for that. Like when I was diagnosed with BPD, I worked in the mall. And so that was also not good because I was just in a mall 40 hours a week, right? And I would not only like you've got the food court, you've got the bars or like restaurants with alcohol, but you've also got unlimited things to buy. That was kind of before like online shopping was a thing. I mean, that makes me sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but like, you know, it was 10 years ago.
No, I
so
remember
that's
4 times.
Yeah, like where you were like, ooh, I don't know, like am I going to give some weird random person my credit card information? That sounds really sketchy. And then now that like online shopping is a thing, it's so bad because especially when it like saves your credit card information into your phone and you don't even have to get up to like, I found when we
Could
were
never.
trying, right? Oh, it's so bad. It's on like, I'm always thankful when my credit card isn't saved for whatever reason because it actually deters me so much. It's crazy how much it deters me. Like, it's embarrassing because I literally be like, I don't want to go get my wallet, so I guess I'm not going to buy this. Well, clearly you didn't need it very badly, did
Although,
you?
if you're outdoorsy enough, like if I'm out in the rain, like I have like 2 or 3 days when my fingerprint doesn't work anymore, so like that holds me back a bit.
That is helpful. That is definitely helpful. Yeah. I mean, we tried to avoid, or like we're trying to avoid Amazon as much as we possibly can because of all the, Canadian US dynamics. The amount of things that I realized that I buy just because I can is unreal. Like, it's been 6 months or something since we've kind of been trying to avoid it and didn't buy anything for at least 5. And then we had to buy something that was, we couldn't find anywhere else kind of thing. But the amount of times I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to buy that. And I'd be like, oh, no, wait, I can't buy it on Amazon. And then I would look, like I would try and find it elsewhere that was a Canadian store. And it was like, oh, it doesn't exist. Okay, fine. And it's just crazy how easy it is to do. And I mean, I know like in the reckless spending category is also like reckless gambling often comes for people. Gambling breaks my heart. I love gambling personally, but I know that I would be addicted to gambling. Like because of the rush and the like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And the impulsivity of it. So I have to be super careful. Like if I go to a casino, I have like $40 and then I'm done. And there's no, Aaron has my wallet. There's no, oh, well, fine, I'll just like take cash out. Like, no, what I went in with is what I spend. But you see people, I like roulette. That's like my go-to. You see people at these roulette tables and they're just like, they're like, I need to make my rent back. And you're like, oh my God, honestly, gambling addiction breaks my heart and it's so impulsive. And then you're just trying to get yourself out of a hole that you've got yourself into, but there's no way to get yourself out of. And I don't think it gets enough attention of like how potentially damaging that is to your life and the life of everybody else. But also the fact that online gambling is a thing. I mean, that has to be a hard line for me. Has to be. Because I will fall into that hole for sure.
Don't even
Shane,
get
I
me
think you were
started
gonna say
about
something.
the online. Yeah, I was like, don't even get me started about the online gambling. I want to say that I'm very thankful that I'm a math guy and I just look at like casinos and things as like it's a business. They don't want you to make money.
Totally.
So like why am I gonna go like make this risk or do this risky thing? Which thankful I at least have that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else on the table, just about. But yeah, with the online gambling, I think you're right, Lori. It's something that doesn't get talked about enough. I have seen people start to have conversations about like what it's doing to populations of young men, especially like when it comes to like sports gambling and how it's so much more easily accessible and readily available from your phone.
And it feels like fake money.
It
right?
is-
Because
it is
because
fake.
it's not, it's like tapping like in your credit card. Or you guys don't do that in the States. That's so weird. You can tap your credit card or like your phone, like your Apple Pay or whatever. And it doesn't feel like real money anymore because you're not even putting your PIN in for your credit card. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to pay this. And like online money, it doesn't feel real. It feels like you're playing Neopets or whatever. Love Neopets.
I love Neopets.
Yeah.
Hey, that was an addiction. That
It's true.
snake game, like, oh my God.
Oh,
hours of my life.
Hours, days probably.
Do you guys have the warnings over there for gambling and stuff?
Yeah. Well, we do anyway.
Like if we have
PSAs.
Yeah, so like if we have here, if there's like an ad for say Ladbrokes or one of those online gambling things, which is usually sports betting type stuff and horse races and those types of stuff. At the end of every single one of those ads that comes on TV, there's a PSA at the end of it saying, think about what else this money could buy you. Gambling's never been a thing for me. I'm a bit like Shane. I'm like, oh, but neither has excessive spending. And I think it's because maybe it's the mum thing.
Mm.
I just don't like, even like 90% of the time, you know, I'll go to an op shop. That's if I'm going to binge shop, it'll be in an op shop.
It's an op shop?
And
Like
like a secondhand store, like a charity store. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But Scott was saying on our trip to Tassie, when he was down there, he went into a pub, and down there you can't even put note money into like a poker machine or something. You have to exchange it for coins and put the coins into the machine. So
interesting.
There's a lot of things in place here because gambling addiction is a huge thing in Australia. And
yeah, we have chips, I think.
yeah, I've watched some people go through that, like what you were saying, Laurie, about like they have to make, and they keep spending money that they don't have to try and make back the money that they've lost, and how soul destroying that can be. But I was going to mention, we have a thing here, and I don't know if you guys have it there, called Time Zone, which is like a kids gaming type place where you go in and there's lots of games where you put money in, and then, you know, like there's the claw machine things that pick up the toys, or
like an arcade.
Like an arcade type thing, but lots of chance type things. So you're not just playing like a pinball machine.
Mm-hmm.
Things
training
where you,
kids
okay,
for
if you
gambling
put more
addiction.
coins in, now your chances are up higher and stuff. And
right, yeah,
Charlie loves them, my 11-year-old son, and I'm not a massive fan because they're very loud. There's a lot of lights. There's a lot going on. So it just completely sensory overloads me. So I don't tend to go into them. But I have been a few times with the boys. And so, like, I'm just watching it, and I said to Scott, this is just setting kids up for gambling
100%.
addictions. It is the exact same thing. There's no warning on those machines because the kids are chasing that high, that toy that's going to come out, or the tickets that they get the thing with at the end. And like, you know, we always talk about kids need to learn DBT skills in school. And I'm like, and then we take them to places like this, you know, it's insanity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just a breeding ground for gambling. Yeah. I'm sure casinos invest in those places. Just
100%. And the psychology of it, like even
so much research goes
certain
into
places like casinos and stuff, they'll put the temperature of the room higher so you put your money through faster because you feel uncomfortable. There's so many psychological aspects down to the colours and the lights and the music to make you feel certain ways. It's
it's scary.
And the fact that it's like legal, and the government, at least here, a lot of I mean, it's like a double-edged sword, I guess, but like a lot of casino profits go to like government and like charity causes here, which is great in that you're like, I want this money to be spent to like fund the arts and like fund whatever. But then also it's like, is this more damaging than it is the funding? I don't know. It just seems so weird to me that the government is like, that's who runs the casinos.
Because it breaks people. Why? That's what I don't understand. Like, it breaks families. Like, there's kids who won't be able to eat tonight because their parents spent the grocery money on a poker machine or a dog race. Like, it seems backwards that goes to charity.
Just say we have something super messed up here. So we do have those like PSAs. So it's like know your limit, stay within it is the like, that's our PSA. Which is fine, but nobody actually looks at the PSAs, right? Or like, we all know, say, you know your limit, stay within it, but like nobody actually is paying attention to that. But we have a what's it called? Like a self-exclusion process where you can, if you have a gambling addiction, you can go in and you can say, I don't want to be allowed to come into a casino anymore. And I don't want, like, basically like self-banning yourself from the casino, which is genius. The issue is they've had a lot of undercover journalism, like documentaries about this, and people will do this self-exclusion process. And what the self-exclusion process actually says is that if you win a jackpot, you can't win. So they say, we'll ban you from casinos, right? So you say, oh, good, I'm never going to be able to gamble again. But they've done a lot of these undercover journalism things where they've sent people in and they don't check their IDs. They don't have any facial recognition. They don't do anything to stop them coming in. But once you are in and gambling, you can't win the jackpot if you do win. It's fucked.
That's
like
so bad.
Fucked.
That's
like the self-exclusion thing is like, it makes sense, right? But it doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if you're actually stopping them from coming in. Anyways.
I don't know if we really have like casinos in the same way, but I remember when I worked in a service station in the McDonald's, Like we had, because we were open 24/7, at night we were in charge of the site, and there was an arcade like in the service station. A lot of them have them, and like people drive up and down the country to go to all different service stations because you're only allowed to be in there for like 2 hours at a time, and so like you have to keep an eye on who's going in and out and how long they're in there. And we had like a little poster of people's faces of everyone that wasn't allowed in for the same sort of self-exclusion stuff. And then like on adverts, we just have like you say, like be gamble aware, and then like some small print, and that's it.
Yeah, and like it makes sense if you're, in a more rural area and you can have the pictures of the 15 people that you're not supposed to let in. But, if you're in downtown Vancouver and there's like, 7 casinos, actually, there's not that many casinos in Vancouver, but you know what I mean? Like if you're in Las Vegas or something, like how are you possibly going to be able to support this?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think we have it in the same way because we'll have like the little arcades that are allowed like maybe 10 people in at a time.
Right. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
You can't do that. So, I mean, like Blackpool probably has bigger ones, but nothing compared to like what you have.
Yeah, totally. So, Shane, at the beginning, you mentioned like ADHD and BPD both have the impulsivity characteristics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that makes the two disorders hard to distinguish. Like you said, even more difficult if you have both. So of the people here, Shane, you have ADHD. Does anybody else have ADHD?
Or ADHD? Both.
Okay.
And I don't have an official diagnosis, but it's been flagged by 2 psychologists for ADD, not the hyperactivity side of it.
Interesting.
Or
Okay.
do you still split it out?
I don't know if they still do now, but
I guess some of them talk that way. Like
I didn't rate highly in the hyperactive section.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't, but in university, they tried to give me, well, to be fair, I was definitely not opposed to it. A family doctor basically was like, yeah, I think you have ADD or ADHD, I'm not sure which, and then gave me some stimulants that really messed me up. So I don't identify as having an ADHD diagnosis, but for those who definitely do, like especially like Shannon, you can totally contribute to this too, but Kat and Shane, for the two of you who definitely do you see a difference in the reason for these impulsive behaviors between those two disorders? I mean, it's hard to distinguish, I guess, but I think my understanding is that impulsivity looks slightly different in terms of what triggers impulsivity, in that on the BPD side of things, it's more triggered by the emotion dysregulation, and on the ADHD side of things, it's more stimulated by the brought on by the hyperactivity inattention type thing.
Yes.
It's
Maybe
it's the dopamine dysregulation, from my understanding.
In ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, because I've got both as well, so that complicates it even more. But like, I think probably the BPD related impulsivity is more linked to like the self-harm, the suicidality, the reckless driving, kind of like, I can't deal with this, sadness, despair, whatever. And then the neurodiverse impulsivity is like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love it. I need it right now. Or like, I need to do that thing. And like happy, flappy, kind of clappy kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Shane, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here kind of like going through all of my impulsive behaviors, and
it's hard to unpick it.
It's kind of hard to like unpack. However, I will say that, yeah, there have been differences in where like I'm trying to chase a high or if I'm trying to self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
You just made me think it's a difference between like running towards something and running away from something.
Yeah.
That's an interesting distinction.
Crashing head on.
Can I throw something else into the mix?
Yeah, please.
Absolutely.
So I experience a lot of impulsivity during anger. But it will be motivated anger. So justice is my main one. And I've got a recent example that I'll quickly touch on to give you an idea. I had a colleague that was being bullied by a client at work. One of the staff kind of thought it was funny, was just like, oh, it's just funny, don't worry about it. I had some big emotions. Dear man, the hell out of it. Did a great job. But immediately following that, my first response was to fix this situation. And impulsively, I didn't act on any of these things, and I was quite skillful in this moment, to be fair to myself, and congratulations me. But like impulsively, I wanted to go up there and tear this little prick's throat out. That's not obviously what I did, or I didn't end up having to do anything. But the impulsivity of wanting to fix this and ruminating on possibilities. So impulsive thought patterns that just would not go away. And okay, maybe if I just go up and approach them and I say this, and could this be a possibility? Would you just fix this thing? And then that led to the next thing and the next thing. Within, I don't know, let's say 2 minutes, I had 20 things, 20 actions that I could take to right this wrong. And everything in my entire body, brain, heart, soul, muscles, was pushing me in that direction. Go and do something about this now. I didn't do any of those things and took a beat, stop skill, DM'd the hell out of it. So the skills definitely worked. And because I used DM'd effectively, it put somebody else in my workplace into a position where then they had to act because I'm me, and they know that if they do nothing, that I'm likely going to do something. So it was probably safer for them to do the thing that they should have done in the first place. And so it all worked out great. But I wanted to bring this into the fold, that impulsivity in regards to, I don't know whether it's anger or rage or whether it's just a trigger for me which causes that. Is there areas for you guys where you find that absolute compulsion to act in a moment?
Yeah.
Because,
Is that protective?
because I think that still fits into this impulsivity theme.
Sorry, Kat, go ahead.
Is that a protective thing? Because I think I would have it in a protective way, but not, like, I find it really hard to get angry for myself because of like my history, but I can get protective for somebody else.
Yeah, I don't get it. Anyone can do whatever they want to me. I can handle that, or not handle it, but pretend I do.
Yeah, push it down so that nobody ever knows.
Yes, it definitely a protective way. That it's more of the rage stuff, and we can talk about that more in that episode. That definitely comes from when things happen to people who I care about. In this situation, it was our most junior staff member who he was the most vulnerable in that situation. He's also quite a soft, gentle soul who I really care about. And we're quite close-knit team as well. So I think there was an element of the anger that came in when, and I was like, well, what are we going to do here? How do we escalate this? And what I got was a heap of excuses. Like, oh, if we do that, that's going to affect us this way. If we do this, it's going to affect us this way. And none of that was good enough for me. So yes, definitely protective. And I don't think I would react the same way if it was something that had occurred to me. So yes, Kat, I would agree.
Mm-hmm. I super resonate with the kind of like rear wheel drive is almost how it feels, where like I'm being forced forward into something and there's almost no stopping it. And I'm thinking of two examples that have different causes. So one of them is rage or anger or hatred or the injustice feeling around some family dynamics where I just was like, fuck this, I'm gonna go fucking tell them that they're a piece of shit and I'm gonna go slap them across the face and I'm gonna go blah, 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 blah. And then, like having every single possible potential thing that I could do. Meanwhile, like knowing that I probably shouldn't go do that in the middle of public, because if they already think I'm crazy, then they're definitely going to think I'm crazy and they're going to have evidence that I'm crazy. And that push that is very hard to stop. It's like trying to stop a train dead in its tracks. And then I think of the other example where I really felt that, which had a very different cause. And when I'm trying to think about the cause and like the cause between ADHD and the cause between BPD impulsivity, I'm also thinking my own causes of impulsivity and trying to, like, in the back of my head, map out cause and effect, right? So this situation was a bit of a different one where it had nothing to do with rage. It might have had something to do with blowing up my own life, which I think is a thing that definitely happens with impulsivity. But I was in Vancouver for work. There was somebody else that I knew was in Vancouver, and we were staying at two different hotels, and I just decided I need to go over there to their hotel and, like, have sex with them. Like, or, like, do something. Like, I need them to know that I love them, and I need to, like, do something about this right now. And I was, like, walking at, like, probably crazy speeds around Vancouver, like, pacing almost, convinced that I was going to somehow go to this hotel to, like, tell them how I felt and, like, make them fall in love with me or something and, like, do something about it, despite, like, the very real potential of blowing up my literal entire life, to the point where my friends were calling me and I would be like, oh, I'm just having a shower. And they're like, why are you having a shower at 7 p.m.? No reason. And then, like, calling me again to be like, hey, where are you going? Hey, why don't you, like, order room service? You know what I mean? And doing everything they could to try and stop this momentum that was just unstoppable. And it's a feeling that is, for me at least, a feeling that is scary because it feels so unstoppable, but also feels really good, kind of. In that it's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get what I need to get and I'm going to just make it happen and I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And I'm talking, like, crazy fast and I'm walking crazy fast and I'm ready to go. And I'm like, this is my goal and I'm going to hit it. And just despite all of the consequences that could potentially come from it. And I think that's where the impulsivity is a very dangerous fine line between exciting and risk of blowing up your life. So in both of those situations, I was able to not blow up my life, but the second one with the hotel situation was, like, pretty fucking close. Like, I'm still not entirely sure how I got myself out of that, other than I think sometimes if I or other people around me can delay the train enough that it loses steam, then I can crash emotionally, in that I'm like, oh my God, I can't do anything. And then that's kind of the only way to stop it. So that super resonates with me, Shannon. So much.
I think for me, like, I have that with, like, rage and self-destruction, but also, like, quite a shutdown kind of thing. But there's, like, a massive relief because, like you say, it's like, right, okay, we're just going to do this. We hate everything. We don't care about ourselves. So, like, nothing matters anymore. And that's a relief from, like, the overthinking and the struggling and the worrying about everything.
Totally. I think that's why a lot of times when people are about to die by suicide, they feel totally normal.
Exactly.
And they're, like, happy because, like you said, it's finally some sort of end game to this thing that you can't get out of.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, totally. Me too. Was there almost last year. And yeah, so I think that's the distinction in some ways between the impulsivity that's positive and the impulsivity that's negative, is it going to blow up your life? And sometimes it's really hard to know what's going to blow up your life in the moment. But I think of those core examples that I'm thinking about, where, like, you know, even Shannon's example, well, if you'd gone up there and slapped that customer, you probably would have blown up your life at least a little bit, because you'd probably lose your job.
And when in those situations, like, especially when it's around justice, like, I will die on that hill. If I there's been times where I was willing to lose my job over something that had occurred, you know. I've lost friendships over a person mistreating somebody else. And, you know, if I've called them out on it, and that impulsive, anytime I call someone out, it is generally impulsive behavior, because I generally, when I'm well and calm and level, won't rock the boat. I never want to hurt somebody's feelings on purpose. But if there's something behind it and those back wheels are turning, I can and will say, hey, that was shit, and I can see what you're trying to do here, and it's not okay. And I've lost friendships over doing that. I think maybe if I had DBT back then when these things were occurring and I was able to use it skillfully like I did in this situation where I didn't blow up my life. But it's not just in a person, it's not just in these work situations. I can completely relate to what you just mentioned too, Laurie, about having connections with people. And there was like when I was a young mum that's almost identical to what you're talking about. And that impulsive, even in a breakup, I had a big breakup in my late teens. Late teens. And like it was an impulsivity to think about how I could fix this relationship and keep putting myself in situations where I would cross paths with this person. And then it wouldn't go the way that I thought it would. So then I would impulsively, well, it became compulsion. That impulsivity then moved into this, if I'm just here and then this will play out this way and this will play out this way. But in the process of doing that, not only did I destroy myself emotionally because it didn't ever turn out the way that I thought it was going to, I also put myself in really dangerous situations where it might have been if he sees me with somebody else, that might be the thing that, so I would put myself in situations where I might be with somebody who I didn't really know or who wasn't a good person, who that didn't end well either. Yeah, I can really relate to both of those things, and that rear wheel drive thing really does make sense to me around that, because when it starts, it's so difficult to stop.
And that's the thing is, you said, oh, and I use my DBT skills, or if I didn't have DBT skills. But I think these impulsive moments are probably the time when I find it the absolute most difficult to actually use my DBT skills, to the point where I can be like, I know there's DBT skills, fuck these DBT skills, I don't want to use them, blah, 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 blah. I've literally said that to myself and others in those moments, and they go, what's something that we can do? Fuck those skills. They don't work anyways, or I don't want them to work. I think is more the thing, is that at the deep down,
sometimes you want to ride that train.
That train feels really exciting, I guess, and dangerous, maybe.
I think
or righteous.
It's too, sometimes righteous, 100%. Sometimes it's too big to hold as well. It's like, no, I need to get this out of me somehow, and then I can calm down. But right now, I'm not going there.
And if you've built all these things up in your head for so long that you're like, this is going to be what's going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to happen that way because it rarely does.
I guess it's I think there's all that kind of repressed rage kind of thing as well, from when you couldn't express it. And then instead of just the rage of now, you have the rage of now and all of the other times that you weren't allowed to rage or couldn't rage. And it's it's big. It's big enough
now and forever.
Exactly. All of the rage from now and forevermore.
Just seeping into your soul. And a lot of the time it is about that justice piece. And so you feel like you are in the right. I mean, neither of the two examples I gave, me getting laid is not in the righteous justice piece, but a lot of the time when especially that rage piece, Kat, where you were talking about you hold it in for too long and then you lose your goddamn mind. For me, a lot of the time that's me trying to just go with the flow, and then losing it. But a lot of the time when I'm losing it, it's about something that I'm pretty sure I'm in the right about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just tried to go with status quo or just keep my job or whatever it is. So then there's that other piece of, well, why would I stop this train if the train is right? Because whatever, anyways, that metaphor didn't.
When I said I
work as
skilled the shit out of that too, I only realized afterwards that that's what I did. In the moment, my only thought was, don't act on this in a way you're going to regret later, because I knew where I was.
Yes.
And I knew that, setting fire to their business premises was probably not the right choice, even though that's what I wanted to do.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
I suppose that's part of understanding when you're in emotional mind versus wise mind. And I'm pretty good at doing that in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't take that impulsivity away, that desire to fix a situation in that, or a desire to connect with that person, or a desire to take that drug because it's going to make you feel better, or to drink that drink because it's going to relax you into a situation.
Mm-hmm.
The skills, I only realized I was skillful about it afterwards when I reflected on it. And I went, actually, if I put dear man to this, I described the situation. I expressed my feelings about it. I actually even said, guys, I'm pretty freaking pissed about this. You're going to have to give me a minute. I will calm down, but I'm not okay right now. And we know that this is me and I've got some big feelings and you're just going to have to give me a minute. In an hour, I might feel differently, but right now I'm not okay. I was able to reinforce the people's roles, like we don't need to go through it. But afterwards, when I went back and looked at it and I went, hey, you did this without thinking. So
Nice.
all of the
that's
times
the dream.
that you do it where you write the letter or you put it down and you go, oh, maybe, if you're doing a co-behead plan and, you dot all these things down. And then there's that one time where you go, holy shit, I did it without thinking about it. And if I wrote that situation now down, I could fit it into those acronyms that don't always work.
Yeah. No, they do not. Yeah. No, I can't relate on that, especially dear man, because there is no dear manning my situations when that train is going.
Can I throw something else into there? Because if you've got the rage or the fear or the despair or whatever of the past, not all, you might know DBT skills, but that triggered part doesn't necessarily.
No.
So sometimes, they don't trust it. That I know, I don't trust that. I haven't.
And it's not what you think about in the moment.
Exactly. It's like I haven't done that. That has not got enough reliable evidence as, self-harm or drinking or whatever. And you have to build it up, and then it kind of trickles down.
It almost feels unfair, like they diagnose us with a mental illness that is all about intense emotions. And then they say, here, in the middle of the most intense thing that you might ever feel, I want you to apply these things. It does seem a little bit unfair.
Oh, but practice with all of your little emotions that you don't have first.
Yeah.
I think that's why there's those components, right? Is you're not using interpersonal effectiveness before you have emotion regulation for the most part, because if you don't have emotion regulation, you're not going to be able to use that skill. And if you're too emotionally dysregulated to use emotion regulation skills, then that's when you would use distress tolerance skills, right? So I think, it's all comes full circle at the end, but it is frustrating sometimes.
There's an order of attack.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything, before we go into the specific skills that help us try and cope with this impulsivity challenge, is there any thing that people haven't brought up that they wanted to in terms of impulsivity as a concept or impulsivity in their life? Okay, I think I'll add one thing, because when I think about when I used to so I've had kind of a variety of undiagnosed eating disorders over my life that kind of span the little gambit of eating disorders. And I remember very clearly a moment where I realized that when I stopped self-harming, my binge eating got worse and my ability to restrict got worse. Not that that's a good thing. Obviously, we don't need to restrict our food, but that, and so I'm like, does anybody else feel like when you replace one, that another of these impulsive behaviors gets worse? So I don't drink
100%.
anymore, but I feel like my excessive spending is worse, right? I don't self-harm, but my binge eating is worse. So what, Kat, you said 100%, what kind of examples for you?
Yeah, it's so mine also kind of replace each other. So I guess I restricted first as a teenager, then started self-harming, then binge eating and self-harming, then those and alcohol, and then lots and lots of self-harming. But yeah, just that interplay of if I'm actually not doing that, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't self-harmed for ages, but I'll have done it in some other different way.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of, I don't know if it's control or just relief or whatever, but there has to be some kind of outlet. And I can use ice packs and stuff, and I walk, and I do walk a lot, but not always, doesn't always hit right.
Totally. Shane or Shannon, does that resonate with either of you?
Yeah, it definitely resonates with me. I mean, like I said, initially, a lot of my impulsive behavior looked like reckless driving, hanging out with people that I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. And then it kind of transformed into the reckless spending. That's how I got a lot of my tattoos and things. Substance use. Then, the impulsive sex really threw me for a loop. That was triggered by the rejection and heartbreak that I felt after a breakup. So that was pretty wild. And now I think I'm to the point of binge eating is like the extent of like my impulsive behavior. I do struggle though, like when Shannon, you were talking about like it comes up like I have to fight the intrusive impulsive thoughts like in conversation a lot, especially like when I get big feelings, and I'm not gonna lie, like getting medicated for my ADHD has helped a lot with my impulsivity.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And I think that also I'm just kind of the person where I'm hyper self-aware. So, and going through all of these different impulsive behaviors throughout the years, like once they kind of just stopped working for me, I had to find something else to fill it in, like Kat was saying. Like,
yeah, we kind of work through the list, right? Shannon, how about yourself?
hopefully I've worked myself through the list. Like,
we're done
I think
now.
I've worked myself through the list. Yeah, we're done now.
There's no more. Shannon, how about you?
I would say probably some replacement. I think binge eating is something that I'll probably have my whole entire life, but like I can remember that like when I was little. But I know definitely like the first time that I gave up nicotine, which is a definite addiction for me, I just replaced that with food. Even to the point that it was almost beneficial to continue smoking because the amount of food I was eating, I think health-wise was more detrimental to me than the actual smoking. I think definitely in those two things, I haven't really had an issue with impulsive spending or gambling. I've been very mindful about drinking because I am aware of how good alcohol makes me feel, and there is alcoholism in my family. So I think I've always been aware of that, and our solid, stern rule in our house, and this doesn't just apply to me, it's all of us, and we've taught this to our kids, is you don't drink if you're mad or sad. If you're going to, like, probably neither of those things have ever been an issue for me. Alcohol is probably more a social lubricant, like when I feel anxious.
My thing was never drink alone. And that was my rule when I was drinking a lot, because I was like, the minute if I'm drinking with other people, then it's more of a social thing. But if for some reason there was this like hard line of if I start drinking just on my own every night or whatever, then that's when I'm going to start spiraling into a further problem. And so that was kind of my rule to myself.
Yeah. And I think I'm the opposite. If I drink with other people, I think I probably drink more. If I'm trying to, I suppose that's a fitting in thing, but I don't think I've ever replaced that with anything because drinking has never been something that's been an everyday occurrence. So I don't think I've had dependency issues with that, even though, well, you can't say that because if I feel like I need it when I go into certain social situations, there is a dependency there. So, and I suppose my replacement for that is then like, it's not another impulsive behavior, although it could be impulsive to shut down. Like I'm too scared to say anything because I'm scared I'll say the wrong thing, or I'm too in my head then.
It's almost like the opposite of impulsive.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say food and nicotine, definitely the switches there. But that's probably the only time where I feel like I've had to replace one with the other.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so what about DBT skills that help you with your impulsivity? I mean, I'll start because I always end, and I feel like that's not fair. I was editing a lot this weekend, so I know that I always end because I kept editing and laughing when I was editing with you guys, or editing your guys' conversations, which I love. I think for me, again, I get very much like, I don't want to use my skills, these are stupid. But if I don't do that, or if I know that I need a skill, it's usually like the stop skill. wise mind, probably those two as the main ones, like the stop skill long enough to be able to use wise mind or at least figure out what wise mind is. But then I get into that same kind of mentality of, I know that this is my emotion mind, but I don't care. And so that doesn't really necessarily like solve the problem, but at least I'm aware that it's my emotion mind. I've literally said that to my counselor so many times, the poor woman. I think those are probably the main ones. I mean, I know we're not really talking about self-harm here, but there's others for self-harm that I think we'll go into and when we record that episode around, there's just lots of other examples. But stop and wise mind are probably the two that I need the most when I'm in an impulsive state, if I'm willing to use any at all, which is the actual problem. Kat, how about you?
Yeah, I think definitely paced breathing is my first go-to. So I do like coherent breathing, so like 6 in, 6 out with no pause, because that kind of helps me get out of freeze, which is weirdly related to everything. But so that's probably the most effective. And then ice baths, I'll use an ice pack, or I'll move like walking. Usually we'll diffuse some of it, and then that doesn't work, like a check the facts and a cope ahead.
That's true. Actually, walking is a big one too. But the issue is sometimes when I walk, if I'm in that train moment, I'm just walking with passion and anger of the train. So it's like you have to stop. I have to like walk early enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does, yeah.
Shane, how about you?
I don't think I necessarily. So, and again, just a reminder for everybody, I'm just dipping a toe into DBT, but I'd have to just kind of piggyback off of what y'all said. Those are the skills, everything that y'all mentioned are the skills that I use. My advice, though, if you think that you have ADHD, get diagnosed, get medicated for it. Like I said, that's been really helpful for me with controlling my impulsive thoughts and behaviors, and has also mitigated those moments that we've been talking about where we're on a train, right? So I've noticed that I don't have as many of those moments as well since being medicated. So
That's a skill in itself, Shane. I mean, to get the help you need and to get medicated and take your medication, that is like one of the number one fundamental skills that are hard to do. So that's a great one. Shannon, do you want to end us off?
So I would say yes, definitely, to stop skill. Another one I would use, and this is sort of probably related into this rage-induced impulsivity, is checking the facts. Like, if the top of my head's going to blow off and my brain's going to spill out and I'm going to, completely annihilate the world when that train won't stop, I at least need to know that. And I think checking the facts helps me to be in wise mind about that. So understanding if this is happening because it's something that I am not okay with, or if it's something that I'm just triggered by, really helps. Because if there is justification in it, then sometimes those impulsive actions might, when you can get yourself back into wise mind, can be warranted in those situations. When it's real bad and I feel like I can't stop myself, tip is always the one that I will go back to.
Do you want to just explain what tip is to the non-DBT people?
So temperature. So I generally I'll have like a plastic bag of water or ice that I'll put on my face. I do is it the mammalian dive reflex thing, where you put your head forward so it's above, like it's further out than your belly button, so it's like you're falling, and that resets your vagus nerve. That's not actually part of the tip skill, but there is some beneficial stuff there if you want to look into that mammalian dive reflex stuff. Temperature, intense movement, pace breathing, paired muscle relaxation, so where you move through, and that generally gives me a bit of time before I act on anything. To do the tip skills, sometimes I need to opposite action. And I think that ties into what you guys were saying about walking. Like, even if you are walking and you are rage walking or rage cleaning or whatever that opposite action is to whatever the impulsive thing is that you feel like you should be doing, going to a hotel room, burning someone's work premises down, whatever that is. If you are rage walking, that is better than doing something that you're going to regret later. I often rage clean. It doesn't take the rage away or the feelings, but I am doing something with that energy. And that's the thing with impulsivity. There is that drive, that push, the rear wheels turning, like you mentioned, Laurie. And sometimes I have to do something with that momentum to stop me doing whatever the other thing is that could actually cause harm.
Yeah, honestly, opposite action is a great one. I think we've all kind of talked about doing that, but we didn't like name it. So thanks for adding that.
You've reminded me as well of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So like I'll quite often use that when I'm in that kind of place, and like I'll be walking and doing a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or like if I'm like sat in my car like sobbing, like I'll be doing a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like just coming into presence and wise mind and now, and not being stuck in all of the ruminating about what happened or what's going to happen.
Yeah, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is, and I never remember the order, but essentially a mindfulness exercise where you're doing 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3, 2, 1 with all the other senses that aren't coming to me right now. Touch, feel, taste.
2 things you can smell and 1 thing you can taste. I think traditionally I don't use smell just because that's really triggering for me. So I do 5 things I can hear, 5 things I can see, 5 things I can touch, and then 4 things I can hear, etc. So that takes a long time.
Yeah, I think you've said that before. That does take a long time.
But like I've been through like several rounds of that on occasions when I've been in that kind of place that we're talking about.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that like shift, because I always find not that it's triggering, but I find taste really hard. Like I just have a really hard time with that one generally. So I like that you've done it like a bit different. That's cool. Awesome. Well, that is our impulsivity episode. We talked for a long time. We did not hear from Heather, but I think that is indicative of the impulsivity tornado that she was mentioning earlier, which is all good. We are fine with that. There will be a solo episode with Heather eventually as well, so I'm sure we'll get into some of the impulsivity there too. Awesome. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, day, week, whatever. I don't even know what time it is for all of you, but Kat survived the thunderstorm. It actually looks kind of really cool because we can see the thunder behind you, right? So I'm actually kind of really jealous. And yeah, I'll see you guys, I think, next week or in a couple weeks for our next recording. Thank you so much for listening to the Superfeeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Superfeeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Superfeelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me throughout. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.